Morning, everybody. Morning, morning. Thanks for those who complied and came to the front. Thank you for filling up the seats. Um, so, Power Hour. We are now on Power Hour number 3. Who did we have before? And Russell Atapi. And who's this guy sitting down on this couch? This strange guy right here. Luke Quamina. So, let me give you a little story about why Luke is here. One of the reasons why. You all know he's big on social media as an African entrepreneur named Vusi. Some of us went to see Vusi when he was here, right? And so we sat down and we were ready for Vusi, so there was a little bit of an opening in that conference. And, Hema was one of the people who stood up and opened. And then this gentleman came up on stage. And when he was finished, we were like, who is this guy, right? And sometimes you have giants walking among us and you really don't know who they are. And so we had to wonder, who is this guy? And we did a little bit of research and we realized that this guy, I think there's a dub song, he gone global, right? He actually has spoken around the world. And I'm going to read a little bit about him. He's a certified John Maxwell leadership coach who also holds a master's degree in organizational leadership. He's perfect for us this morning, right? He is a highly regarded corporate trainer, personal growth coach, and motivational speaker who has transformed thousands of lives through imparting knowledge on life skills and sharing practical principles for personal growth. What's our topic for today? Anybody remembers? 2 words I just read out. Something on personal growth, right? We don't know exactly what, but we know personal growth remains, right? So I just want to invite Luke to share, just as we have been doing in the past. He's going to say a few words and then we'll get into the Q&A. So as he speaks, think of your questions, think of what you want to ask. Kavi will, of course, do his part and ask some questions, and then we'll open the floor. So Luke, the floor is yours for the hour.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. When I was leaving home, I told my wife, I said, I feel like something really special is going to happen today. I'm accustomed doing a lot of training, but I don't know about you if you have that feeling sometimes when you're leaving home and today is a winning day. I don't feel like that every day, but I felt today is going to be a winning day. My background is simple. I always share my story. I think it's important for the connecting aspect of what I do. I grew up to mother and father. My father was a school teacher. Cecil Quamina, and my mother, late Deborah Quamina. She passed in 2022. But my father was a school teacher at the time. He taught in Mount Pleasant, and my mother was not employed. But I always say that the first memory I had consciousness was growing up in this one-room house, walls galvanized, roof galvanized, and the floor was leapy. And I think somehow I felt I didn't like that house because I would see mud on the galvanized, and my father said he went outside, got a bucket, water, cloth, cleaned out all of the mud, and then as a little boy I told him, well, now I liked it. For some reason, probably very small, I got that from my mother about cleanliness. And the reality hit me when I got invited to a friend's birthday party. That was actually Dr. Chamley, if you know Dr. Chamley from South. I went to school with his son, and they invited me to a birthday party. And when I went to their house for the first time, it was so nice. And then as a child, I compared realities. And I don't know if you know, but comparison will steal your joy. I looked at my house, I remembered theirs, and I said, probably the way you live has something to do with money, and probably money has something to do with what your parents do for a living, not so? And it started a little, I want to say a little hunger inside of me to find out how to do better or how to do more in life. And I didn't say anything to my parents, but this little mind started to work. And so very early, I remember one of the things I did was to try sell mangoes. When you grow up in the country, that's what you see. You see people selling vegetables and fruits on the side of the road. So I remember my first time trying to sell these 4 Julie mangoes, but they're greener. They're nowhere close that they should have been sold. And my aunt used to work for Dr. Kassam. I don't know if you know Dr. Kassam, dentist in Long Circular. So he pulled up to drop her home. He's on his way to North. And I have this little stall with these 4 green mangoes. And I said, Dr. Kassam, would you want to buy these mangoes? And he says, young man, these mangoes are green. I say, yeah, that's why I have this brown paper bag here. All you do is you put these mangoes in here, put them there for 3 days, and they will be half ripe to ripe. And he watched me and he laughed. And he said, it's like he just bought it to encourage me, but he knew that these mangoes were too green. Well, from that day when I made my little first sale, something awoke inside of me about probably a gift. I didn't know it was a gift as yet, but it's a gift on how to put a message together for people to buy in. And it started with me just wanting to earn this money. Anyway, it left from that to, high school growth. I played cricket, ended up playing national cricket under 19, and I just had experiences after experience. But one thing that was significant that I would say that brought me to this place is I figured out that a life really does not have impact until it figures out some things. One is who you are. Who you are. And you say, well, Luke, what does that have to do with anything? I remember going to Queen's Park for trials for under 19 or under 16. And I remember watching the brand of my gears and watching the brand of the gears of the other guys and saying, well, fellas have Grey Nichols and those fellas have SS and those fellas have Slazenger. And when I looked at my pads, I had no brand on it. The gloves had a hole. My bat had tape wrap around. A guy from TN Tech called Chris Edwards gave me that bat off the truck. He said, yeah, man, I encourage you playing good cricket. And he just gave me. And when I watched my gears, I thought that I was what I owned. So I felt that the pads didn't have a brand, so that is who I am. The bat tape up, you can't afford something better. My identity was lost in those things. And I felt the people who had the stuff, they were above. And then when I got out in the middle, I remember my voice of my father way out there is a deep voice. He says, Luke, play each ball on merit. And then I realized when you're out in the middle of life, it's not what you have on. It's not what you're wearing. It's who you are. As a matter of fact, it's who you believe you are. The lion is the king of the jungle. Is the lion the fastest? Lion the biggest? Is he the wisest? But why is he called the king of the jungle? Because when he gets up, he believes he's king. And that's an identity. And so when I discovered that, I realized life changes when you know who you are. Not who people tell you you are. Because people say, you're good for nothing. That's not your identity. You have to know to be deaf to some of those voices. I started to believe I was the head, tail, above, beneath, first and not the last. My parents started to say that. Then I discovered the second thing about a life, if you want to come alive, is you have to know your purpose. So when I come and I talk to workers in a space, I will ask you, are you the right person in the right place? Or is this just a job? Because what brings me here? Passion. Why would I want to do a good job where I work? Passion. If you don't know your passion, then when you're doing work, all you will get to the end of that is pay. The owner of Alibaba, he said, when you work for a thought leader, because if all you get is pay at the end of the work, you're shortcutting yourself. He said you should work next to people who are sharp, thought leaders, environments and companies that are growing, so you're getting a curriculum of growth and development while you work. So that means you are becoming more because of work. I figured out purpose. Then I figured out gifts. See that? If you don't know that, you haven't started to live yet. Everybody carries something special. Most people don't know what it is. And 3 things must be done with your gift. It must be discovered, It must be developed, and then it must be deployed. For example, we all know the story of Guyana. The truth is, Guyana was always rich, but they could not experience their wealth until they discovered what? What they discovered? So all of you are like sitting Guyanas who have not discovered their wealth. Some of you have, but some of you have not. No, you cannot get wealth just because you discovered it. You'll have to do what? Develop. And that's what I learned in life. People study stuff. How many people have coached? Their passion is interior design. What they study in UE? Chemistry. What are you doing? They do 4 years. I've known people do 7 years of medicine. Come out, and what are they doing now? Something creative where they organize people's life. And I said, we have pushed people to pursue career and education, and we have not made them pause for purpose. See, if you pause for purpose, then you will know how to use education. Education equips you and sharpens you to function in purpose. That's how you use education. Education is not a goal as per, this is who I want to become. This is why I'm here, which is purpose. And to equip me for doing this purpose effectively, I now need to be educated in this. And then the last thing I discovered is the life of impact is one that has a vision. People perish for a lack of vision. If you're just living and there's no vision, a vision is a picture of a future reality. So if you're just getting up every day and applying effort and energy and there's no picture you are working towards, then you really haven't started to live. When I placed those 4 together, my life just started to soar. And what I realized was many people need help with this. A lot of people are just living their life and there's nobody to help them. So I made the rest of my journey helping people discover these things. Moving them from not knowing these things to getting what I call core, and then getting them into leadership development, and then ultimately becoming an agent of change in whatever industry that they're in, becoming a person who can create moves and waves in a space. And so that basically is my story. I live every day as if it's my last. One of my key statements of my life is to live a life that is poured out. You will have to die empty. And what that means is when you're born, just like this glass, if it was full, this is potential. So you're born full of something. But by the time you die, this glass should be empty. And the only way to do that is every day you pour out that good stuff that God placed inside of you from the very beginning. Every day life is just pouring out its contribution. It's making somebody whose head is down be lifted up. Every day, if you on purpose live a life where you serve, you make contribution. Your work is not just a job. It's part of service. Service is the path towards greatness. By the time I'm done and I transition through death, it would mean that there's not one drop of potential inside of me anymore. I'm dry. Now it's time for me to transition, and as they say, rest in peace. So my challenge is to help people discover what's all of that good stuff that God has placed inside of you. What's your potential? What are your gifts? What's the purpose for your life? What's the vision for your life? And then let me help you in the growth path along that way as you become a person of significance. So that's it in a nutshell, my journey and really what I do. Yeah, we could.
Now I can identify with Guyana. You know, it's so funny what he says. You look at Guyana and you see all this fertile land before they discovered oil. All this fertile land, and we're like, why hasn't the world unlocked the potential of Guyana? And then all of a sudden, oil is discovered and it's like, okay, Guyana on the map, right? Mm-hmm. But we all have it within us.
We do.
So I want to invite Kavi, our CEO, he's going to enter into the conversational part. And also Isabella is going to collect the questions online as well. So when he's finished with his part, we will open the floor for further questions.
All right. Thanks, Candice, and thanks so much, Luke, for sharing that story.
Yes.
Um, I want to open with something that you and I were talking about earlier and was quite impactful for me to hear it. You said to me, we need to create an environment for eagles to land.
Yes.
Talk to us a bit about that.
Well, I don't know if you pay attention to social media. Months ago, probably even a year ago, there's a lot of talk about high value men and high value women. And the truth is, I heard this from Jim Rohn. He says, you're not paid for time. You're paid for the value you bring to the marketplace. Right? Somebody else is doing 40 hours, they're being paid 10,000. You do your 40 hours, you're paying 4,000. Why we're attracting different levels of compensation? It's not about the time that I'm bringing to the marketplace. It's about the value. Now, if that be the case, a growing, healthy organization is an organization with the right people in the right places doing the right things under the right leadership. It's the right people in the right places doing the right things under the right leadership. If you want to attract the best talent, you have to create an environment where the best talent will thrive. There's a parable about a sower and seeds. You can't throw good seed anywhere and it will grow. So leaders are responsible for creating work environments for people of high value to thrive. Now, if the environment is not good for them to thrive, they will be repelled. Every organization has a revolving door. So if my level of leadership as a leader, let's say on a scale of 1 to 10, is a 6, the only people that will feel comfortable following me are 5s and below. If a 7 gets hired, and I'm leading at a leadership level of a 6, they'll stay for a while, but they won't be sustained in that environment. Why? Because for them to be led, they have to feel the leadership experience coming from a higher place. So I was saying to him that leaders have to create an environment for eagles to want to thrive. I live in Claxton Bay. On the opposite side of the highway is a dump. The dump attracts Kobos. Why? It's a dump. If I keep the leadership culture like a dump, I will attract low value people. Now everybody has value, but not everybody brings the same value to the marketplace. Now here's a thing I learned about creative people. Anybody in creative departments here? Do you know creative people can have the potential of 10, but if you lead them in a certain way, they will only give 5? One of the things that kills creativity is lack of planning from a leader. And I tell you, create in 2 minutes when I should have told you to create in 2 weeks. But I didn't plan. So I gave you a timeline and it will make you operate at a 5. The next thing is you need to give them autonomy. You cannot micromanage a high value creative person. You'll kill them. Hey, I need you to go do we want to launch this new program 5 minutes later. So how it going? I thought you just told 5 minutes earlier. Lunchtime. So how are you going on the project? The emotions are going to shut down on that project. Why? Because I realized because I have a lot of creatives around me and I had to learn how to lead them. But watch this. Everybody's different. So the leader has to be almost like the chameleon in the room. Because the way you lead a certain person based on their level of leadership is not how you lead another person. Because if you go to the tech or any tech or IT people in the room, once you give them clear lines, details, you don't have to see them until their delivery. Now, mess with that, and you'll frustrate them. As a matter of fact, in the meeting, they're not listening to all the fluff talk. Get to the numbers, get to the details, we're on. You sure this is what you all want? No changes to this? All right, good. And they go to work. So I learned that the environment I create has to be an environment for all this diversity to thrive. But regardless of their differences, high value people need a certain work environment to thrive. And so if the organization wants to attract the eagles, you have to build an eagle environment for people to thrive. As a matter of fact, in the market, people should say, I want to work for them. You know why? Because let me tell you how they treat their people. Let me tell you about the benefits. Let me tell you how they structure the work. Let me tell you how they treat with their high value. The word gets out that that's the place to work. That's what happens in America. I lived there for many years. People will go to a top restaurant and they will experience the service in that top restaurant. Now they're from another restaurant. And what do you think they're doing? They'll find your best server on the field at night. And when they find the best server, believe it, they leave it with a business card. And before you know it, they're taking your best person out. And that is the competition for talent today. And if we don't have eagle environments, we will not attract the very best. And it's one thing to attract them. It's another thing to do what?
Good. So, Luke, you also spoke a bit about passion. And I think we all heard, if you find your passion, you will never work a day in your life. Even for me, that's a difficult statement to understand, because I think finding your passion is a difficult thing to uncover. I am not even sure, me personally, I have found my passion in life. I don't think I could articulate that to anybody. So tell us, how do you find this? How do you unlock it? When you use the example of Guyana, you said it must first be discovered. Is there any tips, tricks on how to discover the passion that we all have as people?
Yeah. The first thing, I'll tell you an experience that happened to me. I was in college. And, well, first of all, on my reports back in high school, Luke is a good student, but he talks too much. So I thought his talking was a problem, right? So when I went to college, this is Florida Memorial University in Florida, they said, I'm working for the International Student Office. And they said, Luke, we have in high school coaches come to the university to see if they want to recommend this school to their high schoolers. Would you do a 5-minute or 2-minute or 3-minute student's perspective? Meaning, you're an international student, tell the scouts how you experience in the university. So I go up, I do it. When I finish, a scout came and said, hey, would you come to my high school and speak? I think you could get some of these young men to come to college. They're getting free scholarship money, but they don't want to come to college. I say, sure, I'll come. Where's your high school? He says, in Georgia. I'll pay for your flight, pay for your hotel, and I'll pay you. I say, well, when we leaving? And then the student advisor said, no, you can't leave the state like that. You have to get permission. So anyway, we went through the permissions. When I went down there, I just going to do a talk, because remember this, sometimes you don't know it's your passion until it gets recognized. To you, it's normal. But when you do what you do well in a place where there's a demand for the gift and they respond to it, it sometimes wakes you up to something that you didn't think was anything special. So when I go there, 67 young men sign up for college. Now, you know how much they pay per year in college? It could run you, a degree could run you about 80,000 US. That's when, back then. It's probably more, I don't know. So just imagine my little talk, recruit 67 people who are going to give the college an average of 80,000 US. But I am not putting a value on it, I just did a talk. So they sign up for college to come. So the guy gave me a little envelope. He picked me up the next day. I had to go to the airport. I had breakfast. He handed me the envelope. I put it in my little JanSport bag. I headed back to Florida. Just before I land, something say, well, you never opened the envelope. So I opened the envelope. At that time, I was working on campus for $232 every 2 weeks. Because as an international student, you can't do a regular job, right? Just on campus job. $1,100. I said, nah, man, this man make a mistake. Why would, in my mind, I said, why did he give me so much? Because I don't understand my value. And then I heard a little voice that says, that man sees something in you that you do not see in yourself. By the time the plane landed, I had a, you know when you have to make a shift in your life? Like you were seeing it wrong all the time? So as soon as I land, watch how God works. The admission office, her name, head was Mrs. Martin. She says, we have some tickets to go to an event, but nobody wants to go. We have one more ticket. Luke, do you want to go? When I grab the ticket, it's a man called Zig Ziglar. You all know who Zig Ziglar is? If you don't know who he is, go listen to him. I am going to hear Zig Ziglar live in American Airlines Arena, Miami. This is the #1 motivational speaker in the world. So watch how life is. I just got a revelation about myself in this trip. I land, and now I get a ticket to go listen to the #1 because I'm not seeing this as anything. I studied management information systems. When I sit down to listen to Zig for the first time, and that man speak for 40 minutes, I literally felt a surgeon open up my brain, start to go through the negativity and stuff, take it out, took the good stuff, put it in, close back up, all that he did with his words. I say, oh, this man making me feel fired up. I feel like I'm ready to win. So I lean over to the guy and I said, I wonder how much this guy gets paid to do stuff like this. And the guy said, well, I'm friends with one of the guys that works on his team. He says, that's a $80,000 talk. Well, brother, I say, wait now, this is a career? I went to buy one of Zig's CD series, didn't have the money, and he ended up giving me one on goals. Signed it for me, and I went home on college, and I listened to the whole thing in one night. I don't have a map to discover passion, but I know how it feels when you run into something and you say, this is my lane. I know how to do it. I don't have the training for it, but it's almost like, I don't know if anybody plays the guitar, but when you're tuning a guitar, if you're not using any external thing, you're just using the strings, when a string is in the same tone or key as another string, the vibrations, they even out. And you tune in one string and that's what happens when you get exposed to somebody, watch this, who is the harvest to you as a seed. That means you now starting up. But when you encounter them, they're looking like the harvest to where you at. That's what happened when I encountered Zig. It's like this man woke me up to show me what was possible for somebody who probably is carrying the same gift, but I don't have the development. So when I reflect and I say, wait now, 67 fellas went to sign up for college in a little gymnasium. Now I sit in with thousands, probably with a little work, a little development, a little practice. Probably one day I might be able to talk to hundreds or thousands and help move people in a direction. And that's how that began. Now, another little hint, and you could take this down. What comes easy for you to do, it's hard for others to do. But when you do that thing, either you get complimented for the thing or people keep asking you to do that thing over and over again. Some of you could be sleeping on your oil, you know. You see, you're not taking it seriously. You're doing your work here, but your passion somewhere here. Now, I know this. You're going to get rich from your passion. Why? Because a man's gift is what makes room for him. Your gift. Your skill will get the work done. But you see, a gift, your gift has impact on people. When you do that thing, people's lives are changed. And for me, when you can create work where you're gifted, that's the ultimate alignment. Some people are gifted here and they're working here. But if you take a little time to evaluate yourself, why don't you work as hard where you're gifted? And then, read up many stories of people who launch major businesses all over the world. Colonel Sanders, you know when he got through at KFC? How old was he? 6. You know how many no's he got? It's fried chicken. It's fried chicken. Fried chicken is fried chicken. Well, KFC money is different. It's not just fried chicken, my friend. As a matter of fact, do you know the recipe for KFC? Let's say it has 16 ingredients. 8 of those ingredients are protected in one vault with limited access, and the other 8 is protected in another vault in another place. And only by Policy and guidelines, they come together. They all aren't stored in the same place. So what he created from a passion became legacy and inheritance for his family. So you could be sitting on something that could bless 2 and 3 generations, but you might not recognize it as something big, but somebody else values that. And think about this, guys. Most businesses are just based on people solving problems. So how you discover passion is ask yourself this: what am I gifted to do, and what problem in the world does this gift solve? Think about that. What am I gifted to do, and what problem in this world does this gift solve? So, for example, this young lady in the glasses on the second row. You're laughing. Your thoughts are going at 100 miles per hour. You're sitting on something, guaranteed. What it is you're sitting on? What you know for sure you're sitting on? Beside the chair. What you're sitting on?
You speak to me directly because with all of the things that you're saying, purpose, passion, but what I'm trying to tie it to is the vision. So I'm taking notes based on that so that I can find the vision picture.
But what do you think, for example, Guyana was sitting on oil. What is oil to you?
A lot of things. I have a word in my ear here because
He's aware.
yeah, he's aware. So there are lots of gifts that I'm sitting on. I love helping people, and that's part of what you said. I have a lot of purpose and I have a lot of gifts. And the passion is there, but the vision is where I need to tie into it. So to tell you one thing that I'm sitting on,
Yes.
to say one thing that I'm sitting on, it's not just one, it's a lot. So to pull those things together is that's where you saw my brain.
Right. So I want to show you this. Remember I told you why I do what I do? People need help. So you see how I could identify her? That's why I get up and do what I do. Because she will remain stuck if I don't follow my passion to help people get the alignment they need to take off. And watch this. We cheat the world when we sit on our oil. You're cheating the world. In one sense, it's actually selfish to not develop on the thing that you discovered. Why? Because if Ghana does not distribute, which is the third step, you have to distribute what you're developing so the rest of the world can benefit. If I don't distribute what I develop, then a problem is not solved in the world. It's like you discover a cure. When you look at most weight loss products, who's the best person to sell a weight loss product? The person who was transformed. But when they do share it, do they just help themselves? They help millions of people across the world. So it will be selfish to keep the story of what you know you do well, and it can help others, right? So my encouragement to you is to get a coach. Don't try to do it on your own, because there are people who are trained to help you discover, develop, and deploy. And the best person to do it is the person who did it. Not just teaching, you have actually had to do it, right? And I'm sure there are more people here. Black and white top, yes. Don't turn around, it's you. That's a typical person who did classes. Who, me? Yes. I also saw your thoughts going at 100 miles per hour. What gift do you think you're sitting on that you're not using? Opinion under pressure. I know opinion. I know. But there's a reason I'm doing it. Probably you need to say it.
No. I have my personal stuff that I handle at home. So it has nothing to do with hair, but...
I want to know what's that gift. And I'm going to show you something. I will show you remember how I said, put your work where your passion is? Sometimes we are working where we are not passionate, and you would never get your best results. You understand what that means?
Yes.
For example, some of you have worked harder on other people's vision than on your own vision. Ain't that true? If it looked like my wife you say, look, you're out there spending hours with people. After a while, she wants to know, well, as a husband or as a father, remember your biggest victory is your private victory, you know. Your home. You can't be doing well out there and you're feeling here. Private victory before what? Public victory. That's Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. You had to win home first, quiet, private, and then question in the back.
Yeah. So Steve Harvey talks about coming to the edge
Yes.
and then trusting your gifts and stepping off. And what happens to a lot of people, and we've all talked about it, is that risk of that step forward.
Mm-hmm.
I'm loud enough. That risk of that step forward.
Yes.
And you're talking about flying and becoming that eagle
Yes.
and flying.
Yes.
But the worry is always when you look down, you're seeing, we always see the risk
Yes, the risk.
as opposed to seeing the flight.
Now, in that story there, Steve Harvey, do you know Steve Harvey was writing jokes for a friend to go and tell in a comedy club? He has a gift. So he's putting the gift on paper and giving a friend, and he realized this friend going and using his jokes in a comedy club. So when he told Steve he getting paid for it, Steve Harvey did not know you could get paid for telling jokes. He's a joker. So one day he says, I'm going to come with this guy. And he applies now to be a part of the thing. And they said, well, we don't have any room. You'll have to go next week. And then somebody decided to not come that night, and it created room. So he wasn't prepared. Now I'll tell you something about your gift. You mightn't be prepared on paper, but because you're gifted, the gift will always make room for you. He goes up on stage and he says he don't know what to talk about, so he just started to talk about a fight that he saw with these two boxers and started to make his face and how he felt the boxers were making their face. And he said the place just went crazy. And at the end of the night, they gave Steve probably, I think, less than $200. At that time, Steve Harvey was living out of his car, eating fish that he caught in a, I want to say like a public type of lake, cooking it in the trunk. And he's sleeping on a gift of telling jokes. But to him, it's no big thing. I just tell jokes. By that same gift, Steve Harvey today bought the same land that he used to catch fish to feed himself publicly. And now that land is dedicated to transforming lives of thousands of young men that he runs mentorship programs. That's another example of your gift can make room for you. So even though I know you tell me, I do these things separate and I work here, my challenge to you is, how do I work where I'm passionate? And you know, when I go to organizations, this mightn't sound good, but this is the truth. Sometimes you have to ask yourself, do I really belong here? Should I be here? I know that is scary because I get a paycheck. But ask yourself, should I be here? Because watch this. Sometimes you have to ask yourself, is there a better place for me? All leaders have to lead like that. I know they told me to sit down. But if you lead in a position, you must sit down on the edge of the seat. Why? Because if you haven't identified somebody to take your seat, you'll become redundant just now. Leaders must lead to replace themselves. Because if I don't leave here, I cannot go to the next level. There's another seat available for me. So I'm not trying to stay here forever. So I'm looking for talent in the room right now. Who do I see carrying leadership ability, leadership? I'm going to start identify them and train them. Now, that is not how people generally think. Why? Because sometimes we carry insecurity. We don't want to be replaced. I saw my father intentionally in the last, I don't know how many years, just starting to put more responsibility on me. Why? Because he knows everybody's tenure of leadership is, it's not forever. After a while, if you can't hand over to somebody successfully, then that is not true success. You must have good successorship ready. So I ask sometimes people, are you the right person in the right place? Because for you to thrive, you have to be honest. Is there another place that I can grow even faster? And what that does, it frees up the spot for somebody where that is that right place for that right person. So think organizational, as I said to you before. A growing organization, you cannot grow organization, you can only grow the people in there. And growing people will grow the organization. But for a person to grow, they must be the right person in the right place. When we talked about HR, I said if you select easy, you'll have to train hard. If you have selected the wrong person, I don't care how good of a trainer you bring in here. It's like somebody want to win the derby, they buy a mule and say, hey, train him. I don't care if they train up from wherever. No, sir, we're not going to win a derby. This mule has value, but not in a derby. It's not that I don't believe in the mule. We're starting with the wrong capital. So there's no development here. We're going to frustrate that mule if we try to train him for a derby. So the selection has to be high value people. Because when you select hard, you have to train easy. A lady came to John Maxwell and said, John, how do you find good leaders? I think that. John said, you have to know what a good leader looks like. So John gave the example. He says, my wife and I went shopping. He usually knows when his wife and him go shopping, he's going to find a chair, some coffee. It's going to take 4 hours. He sits down, and she's going to go from store to store. He's going to relax, right? So John said he sat down to have his coffee, and in 25 minutes, the wife says, John, I'm heading to the car. John says, no, something wrong. She definitely didn't get what she wants. 25 minutes and she's heading to the car. How did she finish so quickly? So John says, what happened? He didn't know. She said, I got everything that I wanted. He said, but how? She said, last night I took pictures of the things I wanted. When I went in the store, I showed them the pictures. They got exactly what I want, and I'm out. I'll use that example to say, if you have a picture of what you're looking for, then it'll be easy for you to find it. So he said, I don't spend time trying to motivate leaders. I hire motivated leaders. While you're stressing out how to motivate the people, I stress out on how to hire motivated people. They're driven. They have goals. They're ready to get done. So I put in the work on my hiring. You're putting in the work on your training. And a lot of times, there's some things you can't train.
So that's a great segue into another question. So Luke, you are a motivational speaker. And even for you, I want to know, do you wake up some days and you're just not feeling motivated?
Not feeling motivated. So I put myself in routine. I don't know if you all ever heard the story behind how Rituals got its name. Do you ever hear that story about how Rituals got its name? So what we going to name this coffee franchise? The wife said, I don't know, but people get up every morning and drink coffee like a ritual. And if you have any coffee drinkers here this morning, we don't have to be reminded, right? As soon as we get up, something just says, either put the coffee on, put the hot water on based on how you do it. It's just something we do. Well, you have to have a ritual that gets you started for the day. So let me ask you all a question. Be honest with me. How many of you, as soon as your eyes wake up, are willing to tell me what the very first thing you do for the day? As soon as you get consciousness, your eyes open. What's the very first thing you do? Pray. No, you say pray. Oh, they're real good, boy. I don't know how to do that. My eyes open. Look at the phone. What you do? Check your phone. What you do? Check the time. What you do? Pray. Now, here's a category I will tell you. As soon as you get up, do something for intake. What does that mean? You should never go into outflow before there's intake. The Dead Sea is the Dead Sea because water flows into it, but nothing flows out of it. So if you have intake without outflow, that system is dead. So I always tell people, if you're giving out at work, but you don't have a ritual that is pouring into you, you will run red in your emotional account, your spiritual account, because you're having withdrawals on the job. The job is pulling on you, but there are no deposits. So the first part of the day must be intake. That could be time outside to walk. And, I like getting outside. I live in the country, so there's a whole lot of conversations be happening outside with these birds and them. It's actually interesting how busy they are in the morning. If anybody ever goes outside very early, they are working very early. By the time we get up to work, they're resting. They don't like to work in the hot sun. Early, everybody's doing everything, and they're all over, and a lot of conversations happening. So very early, get outside, read some fresh air. If prayer is what you want to do, reading a book. I listen a lot to audios, because one of the books I read every day says faith cometh by hearing. Hearing. So hearing can bring things into your life. Now if you listen to the wrong stuff, it'll bring some of the, So before work, on your way to work, what are you listening to? Grab an audio on something that in this season of your life can help you, right? I listen to things on marriage every day. Why? I've never been married before. So I want to do well in this thing, right? So I have to listen, because correct practice starts with correct knowledge. You cannot prosper in a thing that you have no knowledge of. You have to have knowledge, you have to have understanding, and then wisdom is the practice of that which you understood. So I have to always make sure I am hearing the right thing. So in the beginning of the day, I put rituals. So when I don't feel like it, I know there are days I'm not going to feel like it, but feelings don't lead me. Because of my rituals and disciplines in place, I know how to get the engine warm and ready for the day. So you're not being driven by emotions. The day my mom died was the 15th of July, 2022. On the 16th of July, I had a scheduled appointment to speak. Mom died at 8:03 p.m. So what to do? To cancel this thing? I said, Luke, don't try to be no hero. Your mom died tonight. Don't go and do anything tomorrow. You don't know how you're going to react. You might break down, whatever. And then I thought about my mother, and I said, what would your mother want you to do, boy? It's like I heard my mother's voice say, do it. I said, do it, mommy? I said, do it. When I did it, it's 29 people. It's a virtual event. They found out after that my mom passed the night before. A man was on that virtual event who was not supposed to be there. He was one of the guys who worked with Dr. Miles Monroe. If anybody know Dr. Miles Monroe? Major author, global speaker. The guy was on there. He said, I thought my work in the earth was done. This man's words. When Dr. Miles died. He said, but after hearing you share today, I want to work with you. The man flew from the US, came and sat down with me for days, and started to put a plan together to work with me. No. Why am I telling you this? It's not that I try to block out my emotions. I have the right rituals that prepped my mind that in the midst of this pain to get the job done. But when I did it, it opened up an opportunity that I would have missed. So my encouragement to you all, sometimes you may not want to be in work. You appreciate it, you're grateful for it, but you may not want to be there. But what rituals do you have to prepare you for the day? What does a winning mentality feel like? Remember I told you all, I said today something great was going to come out of today. That's the feeling I had when I left the house. I told my wife, I said, hey, something, I have the feeling. Now my house is sick. My daughter is 6 years old, burning with fever, up all night with her. My son recovering. My wife and I taking care. So it was a rough night. So I'm supposed to be a little today. But the rituals kick in. Get our music in. On my way here, I was listening to my audio. Had my coffee. That's a part of my ritual. And when I got here and started talk, I always think of you guys. Who is God going to give me the opportunity to add value to today? Somebody's story is going to be stirred up. And so that gets me excited because I'm in also the place of passion. Now, if this was my passion and this was just work, you may not get what you're getting today because it's just doing it out of what they call not commitment, but I forget the other word, compliance. I'm supposed to be here, so I'm doing it. But you don't get heart out of it. So for me, I'd always feel motivated. But what saves me are the rituals. And if you don't like the word rituals, then you can use disciplines. Let the disciplines lead you rather than the emotions.
Yeah. So great. I have one more question, and then I want to give the opportunity to members of the audience as well as the virtual audience here. When we were speaking about passion, and we had Lavon share with us some of the things that she's sleeping on, and I think she might be sleeping on oil, gold, bauxite, everything.
Multiple.
You know, you said she may need a coach. So I want to hear from you what the importance of having coaches in life, mentors in life, if we want to get to the next level in life.
Yeah. You know, when Candace was doing the introduction, she gave honor in one sense to me when she saw it's like the local boy at Vusi, right? Now, I'm grateful about that because sometimes in our culture, other cultures around the world, but I see it a lot in our culture, we fail to give honor to each other, right? So the foreigner comes in and the foreigner does it, but we have our local people here and we may not show the same type of. But why that is important? Because to grow, a very important aspect of growth is humility. Humility doesn't mean I am less than you. Humility is I acknowledge there's something that you have that I don't have. And you cannot grow unless you carry that hunger for more. So like I'm looking at some of the West Indies women bat, and I'm seeing fundamental errors in their batting. And you know what I ask myself? I say, I wonder if they, like you see how Lara just released his book? I wonder if anybody has the humility to say, Lara, I'm going to invest my own money to come down here for a month. I want you to watch my technique, and I just want you to tell me. Like, that is so valuable. Like, sometimes I look at the old games with Brian Lara, and I'm like, I wonder if people realize that this man did not only have a skill. See this? You have to understand how short, you have to understand how short he was, man. Because I played cricket, he had giants running down at him, to scare him, and he's batting one down, number 3. So the ball most of the times is new, the pitch is hard, and they're flying leather left, right, and center. And this short guy, who's called the Prince of Port of Spain, will dispatch some of the fastest bowlers all over the oval and the stadium. It's his mentality. He has no reason to think like he is because his stature is small, but Brian is a lion. He was aggressive. He would do things mentally to throw off the entire team, like first ball 6 in a test match. Why would he do that? It's just, he used to play a hard game here, mentally. So when you think of your own growth, when you think of your own journey, I always ask myself or ask people, really, what sets you apart? And mentorship is really how you get somebody to tell you what you don't see in yourself, to correct and to improve. We all have blind spots. Yeah? Everybody knows that we have a blind spot. And today, leaders, one of the things we have to have is self-awareness. So sometimes in your mind, you're doing something to help somebody, but it's not really helping them. It's like love languages. If you ever read the book 5 Love Languages, if somebody's love language is quality time, then the only time they feel love is when you spend quality time with them. If you're giving them gifts, if you're doing words of affirmation, they are not feeling loved, even though you think that that communicates love to them. It doesn't communicate love to them because the only thing that they feel loved is when you spend quality time. A coach is able to watch you from the side. They have a path, ask you the right questions and say, these are your strengths. But based on your industry, this is something that I think you should be able to work on. Like I tell a lot of leaders, you cannot lead effectively if you do not improve your communication. See communication? Sometimes people mean well, but they don't know how to say it. One of the areas that communication is critical is handling conflict. Words are everything when you're handling conflict. You can't just use words wildly. Tone, timing, whether it's face-to-face, text, email. People many times they're dealing with things, they're using the wrong form of communication. Conflict, I always appreciate face-to-face. Let's talk. Let's be honest. Tone. I have the sandwich rule. You tell them what you appreciate about them. Then you deal with the issue. You confirm what you appreciate about them. Then you release. So a guide and a coach, they don't only have the path, but they're able to increase our awareness of blind spots that we have. And sometimes some messages are hard for you to hear from your peers. Because it's hard for you to hear that. But somebody who's neutral on the outside could say those same things to you, and you will find that you receive them better than somebody who you work with, right? And so that's the importance of that. And I would say in our culture, pursue one. Don't think about, sometimes people think about money first. Think about what your growth. I've spent a lot of money to travel all over this world for growth. Just to sit down with minds. When I sat with Vusi for breakfast, in 3 minutes, what this guy said to me shifted everything. 3 minutes, that association. Sometimes I would meet people very successful, I'll buy them lunch. They'll say, well, no, Luke, that's okay. I say, no, it's my pleasure, I want to buy you lunch. Luke, you having anything? I said, no. I said, this conversation is less about me filling my belly, it's more about me filling my mind. And I have some prepared questions for them. And I ask them questions. I don't waste time. I don't want photographs nor autographs. What is that going to do for me? I go with questions to take things out of people's mind. So when I grab that, I could go home and apply that. And so that's why I would say in your personal growth. And that means the only time you really want to grow is if you're in your right space. If you're not pursuing growth, probably you're just hanging out there because you could get the job done. Try to say that in the nicest way I can. Or sometimes you get discouraged along the way. Or you just get tired. That's also a reason. You could be exhausted and you need some time. Another thing I would say to you is if you don't have a coach, get exposure. What is exposure? If you're in tech, go where the biggest environment of anybody who's doing tech is. Don't just try to grow from what you see in Trinidad. Go where the best speakers are. If you want to speak leaders, go to the top leadership conference in the world. Finance, go where that is. Just go and be in the environment of people who are doing it big and doing it global. Because exposure is everything. What happens is when you come back to Trinidad, you will live local, but you will think global. You can't go back. The mind is like this rubber band. When you stretch it, it cannot go back to the size it was before. So once I went and I got exposed to the bigger conferences and stuff, it changed the way I saw myself and what I felt I was capable of doing. Sat with the John Maxwell, sat with the Les Browns, the Tony Robbins. I went and I realized, I'll tell you another thing I realized, just like you said. Do you ever look down on yourself, They are men and women just like you. All they did is they found what was special and they put in some work. And that's exactly who you are. A lot of us is just that we haven't put in the work over the amount of time. You are just as significant in this world as the people you admire. Do you ever look down on yourself, regardless of where you come from, background, money, none of that stuff. You are very special, you are very significant, and many times it's that we just have not put in the amount of time and work and effort. to grow where we actually matter.
I think coming out of this talk, for me, one of the greatest disservices that we could do to ourselves is to sleep on our talents.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
It's something that we really need to focus in on harnessing so that we could give back to the world in a
Yes.
special way. And I love what you just said there. Live local,
Think
but
global.
think global.
Yeah.
So, folks, at this point in time, I want to open up the questions to any member of the audience, live or virtually. All right, Raphael. Right here with the mic.
Have a mic?
Front row.
Yep.
No, we're going to put it in 2 volts. I will receive if our fried chicken.
Fried chicken recipe in 2
I need to buy 2 volts. Good morning, Luke. I
morning.
have a question about value, right? I heard the other day in a podcast, they were talking about how we create value as individuals, right? And it's an equation. It's skills plus knowledge multiplied by attitude, right? That means you need the knowledge, you need the skills. But what really explode your capacity is your attitude. And my question is how we as a leaders can explode and get the people to have the right attitude. I repeat my teams, and it's something I believe that having the right attitude, having someone willing, is super important and key. And one wise man told me the other day, until when we're going to keep beating a dead horse, right? Because you're not going to get the right attitude. But I truly believe that we have people and opportunities to, how can we impact them to change that attitude? People who have the skill, have the potential, you said, have that oil inside, but just don't get it done.
You know, last night I was at Pizza Hut with some of the young men. I serve in the Empower program at Ministry of Sport Community Development. Some of these young men come from the roughest areas of Trinidad. So I pulled some of them out to just do a little lime pizza, and I went through some financial literacy thing, and I'm going to be launching some small businesses with them. Now, remember, before you get somebody in the workplace, they have been home. That has been their training. And a lot of times we're doing what we observed. These attitudes it's cultures we've been in for a long time. So when you bring a person to the workplace, it's a message that I preached before. I said it's one thing to take people out of Egypt, it's another thing to take Egypt out of people. When you spend a long time in a place, that place gets inside of you. So when you bring them to the workplace, the way for attitude to change is really through mentorship. And it really needs somebody that cares to really rewire how people think. For example, one of the things when you look at certain cultures, last night what we did is I showed them what you show me. I say, what do you do every time you earn money? And I show you your money behavior looks the same way every month. And I'll tell you why. It's coming from the way you think about money. So I sat down with them and we did different scenarios. I said, why do you think your money result looks like that? I said, let me rewire how you think about this thing you call money. And man, it was 3 hours I spent with them, but by the end, they said, it's like they're ready to, you know what I mean? Like they're just ready to run. So it takes leaders who care, and attitude change is like a rewiring. If you wire a switch that when you hit it up, the light goes on, and you click it down, the light goes off. An attitude change is to go in the back of that switch and change how that works. It takes work. You can't tell them once. It's going to need repetition, and they need to see the reward of this new recommended behavior. Modeling is the next powerful way. Modeling. People need to see an example of how it actually works. That's what children learn by modeling more than what you tell them. They're going to watch what you do. You want a child to call you out? Just say one thing and do a next thing. I don't care. This generation but daddy, the first time my son learned what the speed limit was, he in the back seat. And he watching. If it's 101, Daddy, you're going over the speed limit. He's holding me accountable for the things I said, but he's watching what I do. So the attitude change, I have to model the right thing. Now, I can't get up, but I usually give an example. I do it and let you see me do it. That means I model for you. But then I say, come and do it with me. That's a very important step. Because when you're doing it with me, I motivate. But then I say, you do it, and I'm going to watch you do it. That's mentorship. And then I will say, you do it. Now I'm monitoring. Now, why that is powerful is because that's how you transition things to people. You have to first show them it can be done, but a very important step is, let's do it together. Feel a sense. I went to high school. They say, this is a high-risk class. Mr. Quamina, we want you to come and talk to these high-risk boys at school down south, right? Gang violence, whatever, whatever. So I going in there pensive and ready to deal with some gangsters. I go in as regular students that they say is high risk. So I say, all right, this is how we're going to do this class. I watch the people who were the talkers and they look like they're creating trouble. I say, you are in charge of, whenever I reach, I want you to make sure the class is ready for when I walk in. I pull out all the troublemakers and I give them leadership positions. So by the second time, the principal say, they're watching through the glass and say, nah. Say, you had to be paying them to listen. Then I see more teachers coming on the side and going like this. They say, well, what's going on in here? He says, so what happening? I said, well, you told me they were high risk, so I didn't know how to treat with them. But what I realized was, you all misread them. You know how I got the attention of the whole class? One, I made the troublemakers leadership positions, so they said I feel big, they have some authority. But they felt valued. And the second thing is I was teaching them on money and business, what they had an interest in. If you're a parent, you want to teach a child to read, don't let them read what you want them to read yet. Find something that they like. If they like cars, get them a book about cars for children. So because they want to be entertained, they'll find a way to read to be pleasured in the thing about cars. If they like knives, guns, I don't know what it is. Start with what they like and then lead them to what they need. Don't start with what they need. They'll be disinterested. So that's what I did with them. So attitude change is a core change. It's not an easy change. It's like at the level of tectonic plates in the human spirit. It's at the very core. But we are fighting against what they've learned all their life. For example, when I train with non-profit organizations like churches in South America, it's very easy to teach anything in groups. You know why? That culture is very family-oriented. So things in groups, cell structure, it flourishes. But if I go in another culture that is not very family-oriented, it'll be hard. Why? I'm teaching against the actual culture. So I have to teach something brand new. So mentorship, modeling, but come do it with me. Now, I'll tell you another thing, and again, this for free. This is the only way I know how to say this. You cannot improve a person if you carry a small picture of them. What does that mean? People, the result of you working with people will not exceed the picture that you carry of them. You could pretend. To lie, you're amazing. Well, you will always produce what you really believe about that person. In the story of David in the Bible, when he showed up, his brother say, hey, what are you doing here? He saying, Daddy tell you to drop off bread and cheese first? He say, yeah. He say, well, go back home to the few sheep that you take care of. See how his brother looked at him? Saying, you really have a small portfolio. What are you doing here? This big man thing. We dealing with war. You're a boy watching a few sheep. You drop off the bread and cheese, go back home. So David started asking a little question. He said, well, I hear the king say, if you kill, you get a wife, no taxes, and you get wealth. The brother hear him asking, he said, hey, you know why you're asking those questions? Because basically in Trinidad, Palang, he said, you're fast. That's what he's trying to tell him. David asked a few more questions. By the time he left, he had delivered the entire army of Israel from this giant. Now, how did his brother see him? As a delivery boy. But who was he? A deliverer. You will never prosper under somebody who carries the image of a delivery boy, even though you are a deliverer. So you know what I've taught people? Get out of those environments. Be strong enough to leave the environment that carries a small picture of you. You will always grow under somebody who says, there's your potential. Right now I have a guy who I'm training to speak. I set him up in an appointment to speak, and the guy said, well, we really wanted you. I said, when I give a recommendation, believe I'm not sending them because I can't come. I'm sending him because he can get the job done. So you sure? You replace him with somebody? So I called the guy. I said, how you feel? Prepared? He said, no, I feel a little nervous. I said, listen, you think I would put you in a position to fail? I know you could do it. He went and he did it. I called back the guy who he told me he wanted to make a switch. I said, how was the conference? He said, watch now. That man real good. You know why? If I carry a limiting belief of him, he can't prosper. Because I am expressing my limiting beliefs on his potential, and it will hold him down. But when you build, same thing for your children, when you believe in people, they will actually do more than they believe they can do in themselves. Why? Because somebody's there. My mom, God bless her soul, when I used to run track, I barefoot, never run in proper shoes, but I could run. Going down Paliseco Velodrome, I have fever. My father said, don't let him run, he's sick. My mother said, you know many weeks I pack lunch for this boy doing training, he going to run today. So my father said, he's sick, Debbie. He said, put him in the car. When we go down there, let his foot touch the grass. And if he tell me he can't run, then I will say don't run. So anyway, my father had to listen. You know who's the real boss in the house? So they carry me down, and I'm burning with fever. But I'm living off of my mother's belief. I am not well. I really should not have run. But when you have somebody believing in you like that, you know what happens with your potential? It gets stirred up. So I go out on the track. My coach say, Mrs. Quamina, if we have somebody who's healthy, to be fair, we really should give somebody else to run. She says, Mr. Walker, let me tell you something. You see my son? I make that boy. He pretending right now. Sometimes he's do that to stay home from school. When the gun go off, you watch something and then he'll take off. My mother don't know if I go and run, you know. But she is talking like if she's telling me what I'm going to do, basically. I went there to run, and just before we started, my mother used to see me doing something, putting my hand on my head. That's when I'm nervous. So she saw me doing that in the race, and I said, runners on your marks to go down. Everybody's supposed to be quiet. Well, in the back of me, way up in the stand, I hear, son! It was so loud that the guy said, all right, everybody up, everybody up. So when I turn around, she do so. She said, number one. And then I see my father saying, Debbie, calm down. You know, it's like you're embarrassing the boy. You see, when I went back down, no hands on my head. It's like she tell me, hey, go and run this race. See, when the gun went off, gone. So that is the truth about potential. When you believe that, when even a person's sick, they don't feel good about themselves. They don't feel that they could do it. But your belief in them will make them stir up their potential and jump to another level. So it ties right back to your question. All of that, it takes all of that to help people with attitudes. But if it doesn't change, don't hold yourself guilty to it, because it's a life of training that they've had before you have had them on the workplace. And sometimes the change is possible, but it may not happen in the time that you have with them.
Thank you.
Yeah. Right.
Hello?
Yes.
Hi, Luke. I'm just trying to make a connection between some of the anecdotes that you're giving us. So, you spoke before about identifying the talent in people, that if you find the right talent that are appropriately motivated, the business will move forward. And you spoke about the mules and the derbies, but then you also talk about the picture that you might have of them and how that could limit them in and of itself. So how much of it is my belief in my team that can get them to this level and their natural ability? And what about the biases that I might have myself that might skew my ability to decipher these things?
Yeah. So it works like gas and fire when you have the right leadership who is looking for what I call that resting potential to develop somebody. I think one of the things we need in our society is more honesty. And honesty don't mean being rude, you know, but I think we could save a lot of time if we're being honest. You've seen a lot of times children running a race, 8 people in the race. Your son come last. You run out there on the field. Boogie! You win them up! How amazing! You're so fast! The father on the side saying, he come last. Now, we find telling somebody to come last is hurtful, you know. But how are we preparing them for the real world? We are ill preparing them for the real world because the world is not going to say, Boogie. They're going to say, you don't have what it takes. Now, what that does is helps me to go back home and work on how I presented myself. But if you're not honest with me, then I am not aware of what I need to work on. So good leadership is not just letting everybody through the gates. It's saying to some people, you should be coming through this gate, but here's what I need to go and do. How many times a rejection made somebody grow? Some teacher tell you, yeah, it's Quamina, you're good in sports, but you're not good in the academics. And then you take that as gas and you say, oh, you don't think I'm good? You go to work. Well, thank God the person was honest. Because if they weren't honest, I always say that when people call themselves your friends, cheerleaders never makes a leader grow. A cheerleader could be a yes man. If you have yes men around you, you might have a false sense of reality. You know, they ain't telling you the truth. They're just cheering on everything. So I'm really honestly looking for the right potential. And if I have to be honest with somebody and say, you're not going to make the cut, but you can thrive somewhere else, or I feel if you really want this thing, I'm asking you to go do this in a year and come back, then we have to still see that that is good leadership, even though I may not accept them into this space, because I actually do care about their growth and all of that. Now, as far as the biases, how you prevent yourself from that is don't lead alone. You protect yourself. You know, the book says, multitude of counsel, there is safety. So who do I trust enough to bounce certain things off of as a leader, even though I have the authority to make this decision? Which one of my colleagues could call me out on something and I have to give them permission to do so? I realize today not a lot of people have the courage to be honest. I've seen so many people allow people in their circle to just go all the way down because nobody wanted to be honest. We have to learn to speak the truth and speak it in love. Otherwise, everybody's going to get affected. Even if somebody you love, a top performer, I've seen in many organizations, top performers getting the standards being adjusted for them. And who's going to ultimately be affected? The brand, the organization, the reputation of the company. Somebody has to be courageous enough to say to somebody who's even bringing in good results, hey, There are some things that you're doing. For example, when you're a top performer, you still have to carry that with humility. You shouldn't have separate rules for you because you're a top performer. Courage in leadership allows us to lead like that. Courage in leadership also allows me to call out myself. Hey guys, I was wrong last week when I did this. I just come in clean with you all, just letting you know. I had some time to reflect, and I don't think that the way I said that was good. That creates the environment for everybody to say. I like that level of transparency, because then it gives us a safe space to say we are flawed and we make mistakes. Right? You model that. So, do I choose the right capital? I have to be honest of what we're looking for. Create the standards. We talked about this before. I should let the standard determine who stays and who goes. I shouldn't have to tell you have to go. But if I create the standards high enough, you won't be able to breathe if you don't keep up with what is required to be excellent in this space. So I adjust the standards of what we're looking for. I have to be honest if somebody is really the person I'm looking for or not. But then I have to approach everybody with growth consciousness. Hey, you're not where you should be, but I'm going to create the environment for you to grow. And hopefully, if this is the place that you should be and you grow, then you could be sustained here and even get promoted from here. So when you put it all together, yes, we have to have a sense of grace in us to work with others, but not at the expense of the growth of moving the entire thing forward. And I think that's where efficient and effective leaders are. They know how to balance care and candor when it is needed. I'm caring, but we're going to do this. One thing that used to frustrate me with my dad, he's an amazing person, but my dad he would say, Luke, let's go fly the plane and see if you could find the manual on how to fly planes. He said, well, Dad, are we going to fly the plane and then learn? I said, Dad, that's not how it works. He says, we're going to miss the opportunity if we don't get this plane in the sky. So he's a person who started to build and then say, yeah, we'll find it, drawing plans. And I'm a person who wants to plan and then build. Well, that frustrated me all the time. But then one day I sat down and said, well, look at your father's results. Look at your results, look at your father's results. Who should be listening to who? I should be listening to him. So I stopped letting his method frustrate me, and I tried to understand his heart behind what he was doing. And then I learned to grab the manual on the way to run into the plane and say, all right, Dad, the first step they say is we got to press the red button. I stopped saying, we don't know how to fly. I learned to read the manual on the way to the plane. And then what happened to my personal results? Gone. That's how I ended up buying my first home. My father said, you need to get a house. I said, you're paying me out? He said, no. I realized you don't know what to do with your salary. So he said, the best way to discipline yourself with the salary is to have the accountability of paying for something every month. So get a piece of real estate. Well, I was working for 5,000 TT a month. How many of you believe you could own a house working for 5,000 TT a month? 2007, you think that was possible? You think? See? The fact that I didn't think it was possible didn't matter. There was somebody who knew how to do that. So I submitted to my father's wisdom. He said, you're not going for one of them big houses in Palm East, you know. He said, that's the type of house you're in. You carry me in the country. He said, that's the house you're going to get. You're going to buy what you could afford. But let me tell you something. When I got the keys in my hands, I didn't think it was possible at that salary. But I learned that if I wanted to grow, it was more important for me to listen than to understand everything before I acted. That's the power of trusting a coach. If you wait to understand everything before you act, there's a lot of things that you would not accomplish. If you trust the person leading you, you have to learn to listen and get it done. You say, but I'm a grown man. All right, you can stay grown. and not do a lot of things. Or you could follow the instruction. And when I got it in my hand, I didn't even feel I deserved it. Because he showed me how to do it, so I can't take any credit. When I got the result, I track back and I say, well, how did he know that? So then I got the understanding of it, and then I went on to the next property. Then I went on to the next, and I realized it was better that I listened and followed. So the right leadership will see the potential in you. I also have to become the right person. We don't have time for that, but if I ever get the opportunity, I will tell you what it means to be the right person in an organization. The type of attitudes, the type of thinking. You must be the best news to your boss. As a matter of fact, I tell people, you could create your own raise or your own salary in a company. So look how you do that. Because your boss is not stopping you from bringing more value. When you start to bring serious value to a place, you are unstoppable. Who holding you back? Who? You show me. You will become the talk of the town. You get it done. You're excellent. You're on time. You relate well to others. You carry a good attitude. People love being around you. You're cheerful. They will find space for you. You have to be seen as somebody who makes your company wealthy. So I realized I could not be stopped when I decided to grow. Anything I become a part of, I must become highly valuable to that thing. And I know how to do it. So when I become a part of it, I go straight to the top. But that could be another time, but it's a program that I do and show people the laws of growth. So where you become a person that when you're growing, you could determine your income. You could determine your compensation. It is not limited to where you work. If you become $1 million person, the streams will find you. Whether it's from one place, 2 places, 3 places, 4 places, 5 places. It will find you. Why? Because that's the value you are bringing to the marketplace. Any more questions? I think we had one more before we wrap it up. Yes? Out of time. One final one, anybody?
Candice, did we have one online, you said?
Oh, okay.
Okay. So we have time for one final question.
Wow, excellent. Excellent, 77 online.
Well, 77, but some are viewing parties, right? So it might be, it might be more than.
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah. So yeah, okay, there we go. Question, last question.
Did I win the race? Third in the 60, silver in the 80, and gold in the 4x1.
So yeah, he medaled even while sick because he knew what was possible. Right?
Yeah, it got better as the day went along. And actually in those games, you might remember those names were people like Alicia Tyson, Dree Ryan, Jody Reese. Some of these people went on to represent the country nationally and stuff. So thanks for asking.
So Luke, I just want to say thanks so much for coming
Yes.
to Massy Stores and being participated in the Power Hour. It was exceptional. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. And,
of course.
And thanks again for coming. So
Of course.
that's a wrap, folks.
Thank you very much.